Hey, in the last video, we worked on the user interface, we implemented ShadCN, Tailwind CSS, React Hook Forms, and also we added some custom components for our book management system. In this video, which is the third video of the series, we are going to work on the API. We are going to create endpoints for adding books, deleting, editing, and listing all the content from the database so we can present them in the user interface. So let's get started. This time, all the work is going to be done in the API package. So we can take a look at the script that we have here to run the API is dev. So we can do pnpm run dev to run it, and we are ready to go. Previously, we added a couple of sample endpoints here, and now we're going to continue building on top of this. My Docker image and container are running, so the database is ready to go. To test our endpoints, this time I am going to use a VS Code integration called REST client. I already have it installed here. And what is really cool about this extension is that you can write HTTP requests like this and hit the API that you want. I'm going to add a test file. Let's call it API tests.http. And since the API is running on the port 3000, I can go here and just write, for example, get http localhost 3000. And then if I just call the root URL, we should see this text back. As you can see, there is this little link up here. And this is added by the REST client VS Code extension. And we can write as many as we want. Let's now try adding a book with the post book API. On each request that we add in our test file, we need to separate them with 3 hashtags, pound symbols. So now if I hit this, I'm going to have an error because my endpoint is, first of all, not handling the errors correctly. We're going to do that soon. We need to specify the JSON in the body. Again, to do that, first of all, we need to add the content type to application JSON, and then we can pass the JSON that we are expecting in the API. Here we are looking for a title in a year. You can say, title, deep work, and year. I don't know. I think this book came out in 2018, maybe. Right now, if everything goes well, I will be capturing the book and then inserting it into the books table and returning JSON and status 200. So let's give it a try. Forgot to add this space here between the actual body and the header. And there it is. So now we created a book. So it returns the entire object core entry created in the database. Now let's work on a new endpoint, and that's going to get all the existing books. So it's going to be get books async function because we're going to be dealing with the database. Now we can say books is going to be database select from our books table. And that's it. Now we can just return the books status 200. Let's create another test here. This time we're going to get books like this. That's all we need. What's the issue here? Get book. Oh, I'm missing this guess at the end of books. Try it, and there we go. We have all the books in the database. Looking good. Let's just get rid of this one. We don't need it anymore. now that we've covered getting all the books, creating a book, we might want to get a single book by its ID. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so right here below the get books endpoint, we're going to build a similar one. This time at the end of the URL, we're going to pass this notation. This will allow Hono to capture this section of the URL that we can then use in the callback. My book ID, I can also put it here as book ID. It's going to be rec.param book ID. So this needs to match with our notation here. Before we continue, we can do a console log of the book ID itself, so we know what we have. And for now, let's just return C text. Actually, we can also return the book ID as the response for now. So book ID equals to whatever value we give here. So this is not going to hit the database yet, but let's give it a try here. Book and book 19 to say something. Not found. Right. Since this time I'm getting a single book, I want to make this singular in the URL. Try again, and there we have it. Note that here, when we return, we are returning a text. And you can see it reflected up here in the content type of the return response. And at the same time, if we look at the console log, here we have the response, but this time logged in our terminal. Great. Okay, now that we have our book ID, this actually is coming as a string. We need to parse this to a number like that. And then we need to run the query to the database and this time check for the presence of the book ID. Let's say await tb select from the books table. And here now we can do where. Let's do equals. Now we pass the books table. We're going to compare the book ID on the ID in books table. And then as a second argument, we give the actual value that we're going to compare. Like that. Need to make this function sync. And now we can return as JSON our book with status 200. Awesome. So now let's see. If I send a request to all the existing books, I have 1, 2, 3, and 4. This time I want to now get book number 3. And there it is. Of course, if I do number 10, this is going to fail. We haven't accounted for that use case yet, but let's see what happens. Oh, it actually doesn't fail. That's nice. It's just returning an empty result. With Drizzle, we still don't have a way to bring only one value from the database to do something like a select one or find one. But what we can do here is limit the results to 1. Although by doing this, we are still going to get an array of values. We can give it a try here again. Even though we're asking for only one, Drizzle still returns an array. Instead, what we can do is do something like a manual validation. Since we know that book is an array and it can have 0 or more values, we're going to check for the length. If the length is truthy, or we can just say greater than 0. Let's make this plural. We are going to return just the first element like that. Status 200. Otherwise, just return an empty object for now with status 200. I will be looking for the book with ID 1. And we have something. And now it's returning an object, not the array. if I'm looking for the 100, which doesn't exist, it's returning this. Next up, we are going to add an endpoint for updating a book. Got it right here. This is going to be a put and pointing at book, and put needs the ID of the book that we want to update. And we're also gonna need to capture the parameters from the request. So just as what we did in our get endpoint, we're going to copy this. You can say book ID. It's going to be an async function like that. Now we also need to capture the body of the request like we did in the post. And now we run the update query with Drizzle. It's going to return an updated book. And now what we want to do is do a database update on the books table, but we want to set the body, or let's call it book data, where the book table ID is equal to my book ID. We want this to actually return the result of a updated book, right? So once that's ready, we can now create the JSON response with our updated book and status 200. And there we go. So let's give it a try. First of all, let's get all the books and let's pay attention to this one, deep work. What we're going to do now is to put to the ID 4, and in this book now we're going to send the data that we want to change, right? So if I just change the title to something different, it's going to just change the title. But for now, let's maybe change the year to 2020. And there it is. Now it's returning the updated value with the change that we just made. For now, that's good for the API work. Let's go ahead and commit our changes. Actually, I don't want to commit this file here. I'm going to put it in my git ignore. Let's see, API tests.http. I was editing the git ignore from a different package. I need to modify the git ignore at the root level. Okay, that's looking better now. If we do git status, we are only going to commit the changes for the API and the git ignore too. I think I'm going to wrap the video right here because in the next step, we're going to make use of React query to fetch data, and that's going to be interesting. So I'll see you in the next one.